Well, greetings and good morning, BUS24 students. This is Mr.D. This is week number 5 in our 8-week course in business communications here at Norco College. This week's chapter 7, we're going to be looking at negative messages. So last week you began to do your writing assignments, and we started to look at business writing as our focus. And you did your first memo. You also did a chapter on, regular interoffice communications as well as digital channels, chapters 5 and 6. Now we get into actually focusing on a type of message, which is a negative message. And this is where you're going to be utilizing what's called the indirect strategy. Now, we were already introduced to that a while back. We'll be talking a little bit more about that in this particular chapter, but just want to emphasize that the indirect strategy means that you do not reveal the negative news in this case, or the main idea, until after you've given me all the reasons for why you're delivering the negative news. Now, technically, some people like things to be direct. Sometimes people love it, when you don't beat around the bush, just tell me it straight up. However, some messages are too sensitive to just do that, and it could send somebody into an emotional response, or they'll get angry and they won't listen to anything else you're saying. So the idea of delivering a negative message by using the indirect strategy is that you're building up your listener to finally receive the negative news. So you're giving them all the reasons for what you're about to say, and then you say it. So it follows a certain format. It starts with what's called a buffer, and we'll talk about that in this chapter. It basically is a neutral statement that you could agree on. It could be a word of commendation. It could be praise. It could be an interesting statement. It could be something we all agree with. Hey, look, we're all trying to save money, right? Everybody would agree with that. So that would be your buffer. So I'll be looking for a buffer in your negative news message that you'll be writing this week. And then follow that buffer by all of the reasons for the negative news. So, hey, we're making some cutbacks, or not that we're making cuts back, we're not making as much money. We have a lot of competition. Things are changing in the market, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, negative news number 3. And then we give negative news. That's the third thing. And then after we've delivered the negative news, we want some kind of courteous and respectful close. Thank you for your compliance. Thank you for understanding. Things may change in the future. So it starts with the buffer, continues with all the reasons for the negative news, then the negative news, and then a courteous close. And it needs to follow that format. And that's what we talk about in negative messages. How do I deliver them in a way that doesn't cause people to have emotional responses? So that's what we'll be learning about, and they're going to happen in the business environment. You're going to have say no to a customer. You're going to have to say no to an employee. And so they're very, very prevalent, and probably a lot more prevalent than we often think in a business environment. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here from our class in Canvas and look at what you guys need to be working on this week. So again, we're actually now in module number 2. This is our second week in module 2. We have one more week. The emphasis of module 2 is business writing. So you did your first memo last week, a positive memo of about floating holidays. So I will be grading those over the next few days, as well as your individual presentations. I told you I'd give you a week time to go in and view and comment other students. So I will be starting to grade those this week. You also started your second discussion post, the do's and don'ts of business writing. And just so you know, our Zoom session last week, which we did, I went over all the do's and don'ts of business writing and what I'll be looking for in all the writing assignments. So if you did not watch that Zoom session, I highly encourage you to do that. It's right here. And you can click that folder to go there, but I also put it right here. So business writing, you can watch it, and it tells you everything you need to know about the writing documents. That was last week's module. This week's module, we're looking at chapters 6 and 7. Predominantly focusing on 7, the negative news message. So we're going to continue here. Your discussion post assignment is going to be moved down. And then you have, of course, a check-in assignment on the 2 chapters. You have a quiz on the 2 chapters. You're going to continue your discussion post number 2. And then you're going to do your second writing assignment, which is a negative news email. So there's 2 things about this assignment you need to know. Well, 3. Number 1, that it must be formatted like an email. An email has a subject line at least, has a salutation, and it has a full signature block with name, title, company name, phone number with extension, and email address. That is a business email. If you don't have that, you're going to get marked down on it not being formatted like an email. Secondly, it needs to follow the indirect strategy for a negative news message. So again, start with the buffer, continue with all the reasons for the negative news, then deliver the negative news, then a courteous close. Be very careful that in your subject line, you don't reveal the negative news. A lot of students like to do that, no more no more pizza at lunch, no more free pizza at lunch in the subject line, right? Well, now you told me the negative news before you gave me any of the reasons. So make sure that your subject line doesn't reveal the negative news. And then thirdly, I'm going to be grading you on how it looks. So again, business writing is not essay writing. It should have a lot of text design. It should be short single space paragraphs, the use of things like headings, bullet lists, bold text, underlined text, italicized text throughout the document. It needs to be visually appealing, and it needs to use a lot of text design to make it easy to scan and easy to read. So I'll be looking for those three things in your writing assignment. So that's pretty much it. Again, I'll be grading everything from the prior weeks over the next few days. So I'll be looking for your grade on that. But that's it. Have a great time in week number 5 and enjoy learning about negative messages. And you'll be able to apply this to your jobs right away. And I look forward to reading your documents, your emails in this case, this week. So have a great week, everyone. If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. And you will see me on video again next week.